Hey everyone, I'm Laura Brazil and you're here for Mobility from the Ground Up. It's a 30-minute class working on mobility and flexibility. And today we're going to be working on our hips. So I have a rolled up yoga mat here that I'll be using as a bolster. You can use a rolled up towel at home. And I also have a yoga block for when I'm laying down on my back to put under my head, so you can use a pillow or yoga block if you have one. So just so you have those things on hand. Otherwise, you just need the floor. So let's get started. I'm going to set those things to the side here. And we're going to start in knee-hand position with a little bit of rocking backwards and coming forward. So we're going to be moving our hips through their full range of motion today. I just kind of want you to feel what it feels like to go forward and backward. How far can you go back towards your heels? Do you feel stretch? And then you're going to take your knees even wider here. So wider than hip width apart. I have my toes tucked and are about the same width as my knees here. And I'm going to rock back again. So this width may feel different for your hips, or might feel easier, might feel harder, might feel looser, might feel more tension. All right, now we're going to still maintain this position. You can bring the knees back together though, so the quadruped position still. This time you're going to take your foot out to the side. You can kind of place it wherever feels comfortable for you to get your foot. I've got my right foot flat on the floor, and we're going to rock back again. So all sorts of rocks here, getting deep into hip flexion. And now with our leg out to the side, we're also getting our hip rotators involved. And the inner thigh. So you might feel this in the inner thigh, you might feel it in the deep hip. No wrong place. And only go far back as you can without any pain. Let's switch sides. So my right knee comes down, left foot flat on the floor out to the other side, and I'm going backward. Trying to get your hip as close to your heel as possible. As you go back, notice if you've got a right to left difference from right to left. Just opening up those hips, seeing how they feel here. These rocks. A low load to those hips. All right. We're going to come to a seated position now. We're going to put our hands back behind us. You can place them wherever you feel comfortable. Feet flat out in front of you. Or if it's more comfortable, you can put your heels on the ground. We're going to take our knees side to side. We're not trying to hit the floor here. Just take them side to side until you start feeling a little stretch or a pull. Nice. And now try to let your knees hit the ground, and notice that your hip will likely have to come up in order for that to happen. It may have been coming up before, but now that we're trying to hit the floor with our knees, the hip will for most people will definitely come up. Excellent. I got a lot of weight back in my hands. I'll go side view here for you. So it's not all up here. Well, you might get there, have some fun with that. But right now I'm using my upper body to help support this hip range of motion. Nice. All right, we're gonna lay down on our back now. If you want something under your head, you can have it, especially if your head feels like your neck feels strained when you're on your back. That's when you want something under your head, for sure. And we're going to bring the knee toward the chest. If you have any knee issue, then reach under the knee and pull that knee toward the chest. And what I want you to feel here is try to keep this straight leg, bottom leg on the ground. And as you pull the other one in toward the chest, I want you to start feeling a stretch in the front of that hip. So you can let it relax away from the chest, then draw it in again until you feel a stretch in the front of the opposite leg. So we're just going to do this for a few more repetitions here. You can grab above the knee or behind the knee. Good. Let's switch sides. So now I'm drawing that second side in. Again, if the knee bothers you on this side, on the second side, make sure that you're grabbing underneath it. Otherwise, you can go in front. For most of us, if we're really tight as we draw in, that knee wants to bend because the front of our hips are tight. So if you can keep that leg straight, you can get a little stretch through the front of that hip. And even if you don't feel stretch on that straight leg side, you are working on your hip flexion quite a bit. Couple more times here. Nice. And then we'll do double legs. So both legs at one time. This kind of takes some tension off the low back, these knee drawings as well. Sometimes low back pain can limit our hip range of motion. All right. We're going to sit back up. And this time we're going to do those kind of windshield wiper knees from an upright position. So you might have to lean back a little bit, but we're going to go wider with our feet than we were before. And you're going to let the knees come down and the hip come off. And then you're going to come back to center and then go to the other side. So I'll show you a few times from this angle. You can put the hands back behind you again if you'd like that support again. And I'll show you from the front as well. So I'm going wider with the feet. I come down. I've almost got 90-degree angles here as I go. Notice how your hips feel here. Notice, if you're like me, as you do this, your butt kind of walks forward. The whole pelvis walks forward as you do it. That's a sign of a tension in the hips. And it's okay. One more time each side. Nice. All right. We're going to go back to the quadruped position here, all fours. This time, we're going to take the leg out to the side, but it's going to be straight. So instead of that flat on the floor, we're going to straighten it out here. Then you're going to rock back. Now, I want you to pull your toes towards your shin if you haven't already. So we're not toe pointing here. We have what we call a dorsiflex foot, yes. Dorsiflex ankle. And now we're going to do a few more rocks with the pointed toes, the plantar flex ankle. Notice how the ankle position changes the feel of the stretch through the hips for you today. Good, and let's switch sides. The second side, leg out to the side. It doesn't matter where it is, feet farther forward, farther back. And if it doesn't feel good at all, just go to flat side. So let's start with our toes pulled up, that dorsiflex ankle, and rock on back. If it feels really good to be back here in a certain spot, you can do a smaller rock where it feels nice for you. And maybe nice isn't the right word, maybe where you feel the stretch and where you feel you need the most work. So a lot of times it's not the full range of motion that gets us, it's just like a little bit of the range that stops us feeling comfortable. So let's point the toes now, that plantar flexion. Good. Notice if that feels different for you. And make sure we're not having the knee locked out here. You want to have at least a little micro bend there. So if you're hypermobile in your knees, you know you tend to hyperextend them. Make sure you've got a little bend here. Nice. All right. We're going to go now, give our wrists a little break. We're going to go back to this kind of floor set position here. We were in it when we were going side to side in those windshield wipers. But this time I have the bottom of my left foot near the front of my right thigh, and then my right foot's over here. So from this side, see that there? What I'm going to have you do is you're simply going to push, if you've got that left foot crossed like I do, then you're going to push your right hip towards your left knee. So just push the hip toward that front leg's knee. And you'll feel a stretch in the hip rotators and in the hip flexors. Nice and slow here. A lot of times we're really tight in the front of the hip. So I don't want you to go so fast that you push through something that doesn't want to be pushed through. Let's switch sides. Put my hands back behind me, switching that leg orientation. So now it's my right leg that's in the front, left leg's back behind. And I'm going to bring the left hip bone toward my right knee. Small motion here. But as that hip moves toward the opposite knee, you'll feel that stretch. Again, through the hip rotators, hip flexors. Always slow, always controlled. Hopefully it feels smooth as you do this. Again, you can always come out of things and feel uncomfortable. All right. We're going to go back to that first side that you did. So same start position here. This time we're going to bring our hands forward and then come up into a kneeling position. So we don't often kneel like this in our day-to-day lives, but you might sit like this on the floor. So this is another option to come up out of a floor set position. Let's do one more on this side. Good, and we'll go down, switch sides. Just the act of switching sides here, great hip mobility works. Now I've got my second leg in front here, and I come up to kneeling. Now I've had some people, this is uncomfortable for the knees, so if you can get a thicker mat underneath your knees, a lot of times that will alleviate it, or like a pad. If you're at home, you could fold up a yoga mat so it's like quadruple thickness for you. And that'll usually take off enough pressure. Nice and slow. Let's do two more. Good. Again, we're working our inner thigh, stretching out those, and also the front of the hip here as well. So getting all the muscles that cross at the hip. So let's move to the back side, give the front side a little bit of a break here. I'm going to bring the knee toward the chest again. If your knees bother you, I want you to grab underneath, then you can bring. So this is what your folded position would be like. If this bothers your low back or you feel like you're really slouched in this position and it doesn't feel comfortable, then you can take up your pillow, yoga block, rolled up mat, rolled up blanket, or towel, and do the same thing. Usually getting our hips up a little bit can make these The ground moves a little bit easier. And let's switch sides. So you can grab over, as long as it doesn't bother your knee, or you can go under and then grab the ankle. Nice. And again. And we've been playing with the leg position, with the leg across the body like this. And we're going to continue doing that, but we're going to add in a rocking motion. So right back where we started with the rocks. Now the setup on this, you'll start in the knee hand position. If you're familiar with yoga positions, this might look a little bit like a pigeon, start of a pigeon pose. So you're going to bring I'm going to start with my left leg. You're going to bring that foot forward. So trying to get your shin moved up towards your hands here. And then once you have that set, you can slowly walk the back leg back until you can put the front knee down. Now, I like to have these here because when you're tight in your hips, rocking and moving like this can be really, really tight. So you can put that knee down if you want to. If you don't want to hold the rock position and the walk back, and we'll walk forward again. But I have that bolster under my knee if I don't want to put it down. So we'll walk back. We'll do our walk backs before we rock back. All right, so we're going to bring that knee right underneath our hip. Remove the bolster if you have it there, and then we are going to do our rock. So we started with the walking back. And now this is like a pigeon rock here. Nice and slow as you go back. So a little bit more dynamic than a traditional pigeon pose because you're in place. Rocking back. Notice if your hips, a lot of times when we're in this kind of figure 4 or pigeon position, what'll happen is that when our leg is here, so let's say this is my left leg, you might see it as your right leg if you're near image to me, but the hip might go toward away from that front knee because it bypasses the tension of your hips. So try to make sure that the hip goes straight back like so, instead of swishing to the side. Because we can avoid a lot of our hip tension without realizing it if we don't go straight back. Let's do a couple more here. My heel and foot are on the ground, but my knee's up as I do this. Let's switch sides. So we'll start, I'm on my right side. I'm going to bring my leg forward and bolster that. I'm going to start with a couple walking back with my back leg and then walking forward just to kind of ease into this rocking move. I'm going to walk forward again, walk back one more time, and rock, walk forward. All right, you can remove the bolster if you were using it there. Hopefully your knee is underneath your hip, and then you're going to rock on back. So my knee on the front leg is up, and that's completely normal. The tighter you are, the higher up the knee you want to be. So I can get my knee outside of my arm here with my current tension. But with your tension, your knee might be up more towards your chest, and you still might feel a great stretch. No wrong way. Work with what your body's doing today. And remember to go straight back with the hips and not try to swing from one side to the other as you do this rocking pigeon. Nice. Do a couple more. All right. Come out of that however you feel comfortable. And we're going to give ourselves a little moment there. A lot of times that rocking pigeon can be intense for people. So I want you to sit in a V sit here. And if you need to put something under your butt, if you need to, in order to stay upright. If you feel or see yourself slouching quite a bit, especially if it's out of the norm, then put yourself up on something, hips up on something, and that should help with that feeling. So however you're comfortable, if you're bolstered or not, we're in this V sit, and we're just going to do some gentle motion at the hip. So we're going to take our toes out. This is external rotation of the hip, and then we're going to bring our toes back in, internal rotation. So we're going out and in. Now make sure here that as you're doing this, you're not just moving your ankles. A whole bunch of ways, again, of unconsciously making us think we have greater mobility than we do. One of those is just to move the ankle. So I want you to watch your knees, your patellas here. And can you turn your patella to face more out that way? And then turn your patella to face more inward. Never forcing. So we're externally rotating and internally rotating. Nice. Now it's likely you haven't been thinking about your ankles or your toes, but I'm going to have you pull your toes in towards your shins. You might feel more stretch in the back of the leg. If that causes you again to feel a little bit up, you might have been pointing your toes because it alleviates some of the tension. So use the bolster if you need to. Pull the toes toward the shins and do the same motion. The external rotation to internal rotation. Again, don't just watch your feet and your ankles, watch your patellas, that kneecap. Very nice. Good. All right. Shake it out a little bit. I just got my legs in front of me, hands back, take some pressure off the legs and hips a little bit here before we come to our kind of last moves, excuse me. We've got two left, and we're going to be combining some things here and how you can start to see how this hip mobility work can lead to getting up and down off the floor a little bit better as well. So we're going to come back to this position. We've been here a couple times now. If you're mirror imaging me, this is your right leg. If you're doing what I'm doing, it's your left leg out in front and the other one out behind. You're going to come up into that kneeling position again. It's a little bit of balance. So if you need to put your hands down, you can bring your hands down, come into a low lunge, and tuck the tailbone and push forward a little bit to get the stretch in the front of the hip again. Then come on back, hands down if you need to. Knee here, and then come back down. Let's do it 2 more times. I'll do it without hands on the ground this time so you can see that. So come forward, tuck the tailbone, and then kind of lunge forward. If the tuck of the tailbone gives you a huge stretch in the front, you don't have to move forward. And then come on back. Can you do it without hands? It's okay if you can't. And back down. So a lot of us get up from the floor with a lunging position, so to be able to transition there in a new way will bring hip mobility in a new way. So tuck the tailbone, come forward, back, knees back, and come back down. All right, let's switch sides. Second side here. All right, come up into the kneeling position. We'll do the hands down version first. Bring that formally back foot forward. Tuck the tailbone under, and then you can come forward if it's available to you. If the hip flexor says, yeah, you can go farther, you can. All right, you can put the hands down again. Knee goes back behind and come down. All right, let's do it. No hands if you feel comfortable. Tuck the tailbone under, come forward, come back. Lost my balance there, had to put my hand down. It's fine. And last time. This is my hard side. I always tuck my this leg under me, so this one's not as stable. And we all have that side. All right, last move here. We're gonna do really a move that I wish more people would be able to do, because it's a really good sign that you have really healthy knees and hips as long as there's no pain. Is a low squat, a bottom out squat, some people call it. So we're going to do a rock to squat. So we're back where we started. We're rocking back, toes tucked, and then you're going to walk your hands back and push yourself, if you're able, into a foot flat squat. If you get to feet flat and you feel like you're flying back there, use your rolled up yoga mat or towel, put it behind your heels, and then rock back again. And then that little bolster there should allow you to be more comfortable in this low squat. For other people, it's not the heels down, it's the knees, it's that knee flexion. So if you don't feel comfortable with the knees, don't put that pressure there. You can keep your hands on the ground, or another fun one, put your roll-up towel or your yoga mat behind your knees so that your knees don't have the pressure. So then I'm squeezing that mat there, coming forward. So I'm going forward, rocking back as far as I can. I've got this bolster for my knees. And if I can, I put my heels down. If not, you can keep your heels up. You can bolster it if you'd like. A couple more times here. Good. And then, if you're up for it on these last two, I'm going to do this unbolstered. If you felt like you're going to fall back, please put something under your heels when you go back into the squat. So we go into squat. Can you stand up from here? That's a big hip range of motion right there. And hopefully at this point it feels pretty good. So maybe this rock, even this rock back feels, I hope for you, feels a lot different than it did at the beginning. Nice. All right, one more here. Take the hips back. And just know, even if you can't come into this low squat position, just being here, this is very squat-like. So you can get closer to it and start building strength in that low part from the ground up. It's like class, mobility from the ground up. All right. No squat, no full squats this time. Just rock back. And you can come into child's pose if you've got high blood pressure. Keep your head above your heart. So you could use a chair or a couch or something in front of you, a big pillow. Keep your head above your heart. Or just relaxing back. You can untuck your toes if you'd like. Very deep hip flexion here. And then let's get a little stretch for the front of the hips before we wrap up. So you're going to lay on your back here. You're going to put the rolled up yoga mat or towel kind of at the base of your spine, so your sacrum. And then you can put one leg down behind, or not, it's not behind you. Well, it is moving behind you, but we're going to stretch out the front of the leg in a more relaxed way. And so by putting something under your tailbone here and putting something under your head if you need it, you're just getting a gentle stretch for the front of the hip. And if it doesn't feel gentle, then you might not need something under your hip. You might not need that kind of gravity from this height. Let's switch legs. Take some nice deep breaths. You can stay there if you'd like for a little while. But we've made it to the end of our 30 minutes. Thanks for coming or watching Mobility from the Ground Up with me, Laura. Hopefully I'll see you next time. I hope you have a great day. Bye.